the time to really write about a number of really important subjects. You're not going to hear too much from me other than this introduction, where I'm going to give a quick intro of everyone and their featured work. I'm really going to give the floor to these authors. I thank each of you for doing all that hard work of, putting your stories, your books together for the world to hear and just have this platform. Let me start with introducing who we have today. I'm going to introduce each one individually, and then after that, go back down and let each one kind of give more information about themselves and their featured book. We have Sue Bowles, the author of This Much I Know, The Space Between. She's an author, speaker, and master certified life coach. I'm sure she'll share a lot more in a moment. We have Pia Fitzgerald, who is the author of Wow, I Can Lose Weight. She is a wellness tactician. I can't wait to hear more about what that is. And she's going to be sharing about her featured book as well. We have Cenell. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She is the author of Living with Double DD, Surviving Depression and Divorce. And then we also have Sandee Hemphill.
Yes.
And I said it right?
You did, correct.
Okay. Who is the author of Seeking Through Soaking. So to start, can I ask each of the authors in that order to tell us a little bit about yourself and just maybe a quick synopsis of your book before we get to some additional questions.
Sure. Well, my name is Sue, and I'm excited to be here. I'm a survivor, first and foremost. I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and had a lot of hard work of healing over the course of the last 6 years. And the book, This Much I Know, The Space Between, started as a whole different concept, and it morphed into what it became. And it became an opportunity to share my story. It addresses a number of different things: childhood rape, disorders, alcohol, suicidal, all these things. And the hope that I found when I did the hard work of healing, and how God used actually the retreat that I'm on right now to break through and to show me that I was lovable, that I wasn't the holy exception that I had convinced myself that I was, that everything was good enough for everybody else but me, and just the entire process that God took me through, and the foundation, and how that has become such a springboard to the growth in my life, to go from feeling like I was too far gone to being a master certified life coach, and being here. So definitely a story of hope.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to go ahead and move to, is it Pia?
Right.
Yep,
that's right. Hello, everyone. I am Pia Fitzgerald, and yes, as Leslie pointed out, I call myself the wellness tactician, which simply means I'm a strategist. I look at patterns, look for solutions, and put things together to help people live their best life. And my book is Wow, I Can Lose Weight, which really came about because working with clients and having all kinds of resources and materials here and there, I needed a way to compile it in a way that makes sense, so that we can take them through their curriculum in an organized fashion. So that's how the book came about. And I'm a former English teacher, specializing in writing and literary analysis. And so I've always been about writing and the power of story. So it just kind of worked out and made sense to create a book that's useful for both me and my clients. So that's who I am.
Okay, Cenell.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Cenell Boch, and my book is titled Living with Double D's, Surviving Depression and Divorce. And the book is really all about being a blessing for those who've gone through some obstacles in their life, and they're wondering if there is another side. And I just wanted to let them know there is another side to that grief and depression, or that obstacle that you may be going through. And I never really saw myself as a writer, and it was very difficult for me to write this book. Actually, I kind of voiced most of the book and then transcribe that, because I never really saw myself as a writer, nor do I really see myself as a writer now, but I do see myself as a motivator, as someone who is wanting to allow God to use me to inspire others. And so that was important enough for me to start to write the book. The book actually wrote itself. It started probably about maybe 10 years ago, but I actually put pen to paper or voice to voice transcribing about a year ago. So almost 2 years ago now. So it was a process, but I'm really glad that God is able to use me to be able to just be a blessing to those around us. I think we can all understand obstacles right now, especially 2020. If you've never had an obstacle in your life, 2020 has probably given us all one. And so that was kind of the inspiration for this book, is to be able to be a blessing to individuals who are going through some really tough times in their life, particularly depression and divorce, and how we can get through that, navigate it. Thank you.
All right, Sandee.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Sandee Hemphill, and as a minister, one of my assignments is to help people in the body of Christ develop intimacy with God. And what soaking is, I'm going to try to give a very generic descriptor. What I'm going to call it tonight is, it's that quiet time and space that you find yourself in after your private worship that you don't quite know what to do with. And so my book teaches people what to do with that time, how to even go in and create that time, and how to build a more intimate relationship with the Lord by acknowledging that time, yielding to that time, and learning what He has for you personally during that time and space.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you to all four of you for the important work that you're doing, of really listening to the call that God put on you to share your words with others. I'm a writer and a social worker myself, so I'm really kind of drawn to the themes that I'm hearing from you, from wellness to just drawing closer to Christ. So question I'm just going to throw out there, and just so you know, everyone, I have some questions. By all means, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to start putting them in the chat. We do want to have opportunity for you to ask anything that's on your heart. But just kind of throwing this out there for our four authors, can you share a little bit, what is the main message that you want readers to be able to get from the pages of your book?
I'll go. For me, and I'm also a speaker, so feel free to cut me off. So, for me, the main message is that there is hope, and that hope comes from taking that first step. And that first step is to reach out, because nothing happens in terms of healing and finding the hope, finding the love that Christ has for us, that has been daunted by the world and stained by the things that happen to us. And nothing happens until we have that support system around us. And that support system starts by taking the first step. As a mental health advocate, that's the one thing I keep speaking about, is it's okay to not be okay. And that's the main message of the book, is that it's okay to need some help and some support.
So important. You mentioned the word hope. I believe it's just almost like opening a window. If you have enough of a window, where it's cracked open, you have enough there to keep pulling it open. So, thank you for that. Do any of
I'll go next. What I'd like people to get is, first of all, that God is a personal God. And that He knows us personally and intimately. And then the second thing is that God is accessible. We don't have to be afraid of Him. We can draw near to Him. He wants us to draw near to Him. And so if they just get those two things, that God's personable, that He loves them, He loves everything about them, He already knows your downfall. He's not rejecting you because of anything you did or you didn't do. He loves you in spite of. If they can get that and then capture that God is accessible, you can bring anything to him, then that should cause you to want to be close to him, spend time to him, and get to know him to a degree the same way he knows you. So it's to break that fear off of God is this big, giant, far away, out there person thing that's loving me and take care of me. That's a part of who he is, but the other part is he's as close as your two hands are together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to follow up and agree. Amen, amen. I think we're saying probably most of the same thing. My two things would be that you are supported, that you're never alone. I think in our deepest and darkest times, we feel so alone. And it's so painful. I mean, it can be very painful to feel like I'm out here on an island by myself. And so the thing that I gravitate to is that love and peace of God that really does surpass all understanding. And that's what I kind of reach for. And even in the book I talk about, I mean, I was like, crying out many times where it's just like I felt very alone. But I want my readers to know that you're not alone, that you are loved, that you are supported.
And because this is a faith and fellowship, which is the gem of it all, understanding that love that the Father has for you and that personal access that you do have. My book, it says, wow, I can lose weight, not because I can lose weight, but you need to speak that to yourself. Wow, I can lose weight. And it's not just the physical, it's more about the mental and emotional. And once you understand, because that's typically why you ended up with the weight in the first place, aside from maybe perhaps if you're older with hormone issues, but for the most part, it's the mental and physical the mental and emotional that led to that physical. And so what I want readers to take away is that you can lose all of that weight. You are not wired to carry 2 suitcases and a book bag of nonsense and foolishness and drama from everyone else and from your past all the way to the end and serve God the way he needs you to serve. You just can't do it. You can try, but you're going to be broke down in the process. So that's what I want people to take away when they say the title, wow, I can lose weight.
Excellent. I hear, again, a common theme among the 4 of you. I'm hearing hope, I'm hearing healing, I'm hearing mindset, and I'm hearing relationship. To be able to tap into such important themes, such as that, I imagine that you all have a story about your journey. Just going to kind of open it up if you want to take a few moments to talk a little bit about what that journey has meant for you, whether it's, the journey as to how you got to your book, the journey of writing your book. Just, want to give you a moment to share whatever it is that you think is important for us to know about your journey to the book that you're presenting today. And again, opening up the floor.
I guess I can start. So I'm the last of 12 children, and I've experienced a lot of death in my family, but it became really personal when my mom passed away back in 2012. And so, and even prior to that, I became a bit depressed after she passed away. But even prior to that, as far back as 1995, between 95 and 99, I was working on my first PhD, and that was unsuccessful. So I wasn't able to complete it, and it was devastating. And I went through some depression at that point in my life. And then I got married in 99. My life started to turn around. Things had some children. Everything was going really, really great. And then in 2012, I went through a divorce. And all the time, Pia and I are also friends. She was the one who inspired me to journal. She was like, are you journaling? And I was like, I can't write. I can't journal. I can't do that right now. It was too overwhelming. It was too much. But she encouraged me to do that. And I'm really grateful to God that she did, because that journaling is what basically wrote my book for me, because I used the journal entries to help kind of provide a testimony. My book is really a personal testimony. And so between the depression that I had experienced and also the divorce that I experienced, but also the love and the compassion. And I became a Christian at 14 years of age. So I've always known, for most of my life, I've always known that relationship with God, and that it was more, and it's only expanded and grown, because my initial relationship was very different than my relationship now. It's deepened, I've broadened, and I'm just so grateful that in even all of those experiences, it was very painful. It was challenging. It was very painful, and even today, it's still a process where I go through some real tough times. Even this week, not that I wanted to share this, but just to speak to it, had a very close friend of mine pass away suddenly, and so I think it all kind of comes back to, again, the inspiration for the book was really really just to let individuals know that there's a deeper and greater love. I don't know if we'll share excerpts from my book, but that's the excerpt that I wanted to share, is that there's something greater, something deeper that we can navigate to, kind of our North Star, and draw upon in those really tough times. And it's there, it's always there, and it's just tapping into our source. You know, God is that is our true source. That is our true North Star, even in those times of despair. So yeah, that's part of
I'll
my.
go. Sorry. For me, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and I was raped by a classmate when I was 7 years old, and I didn't tell anyone until my senior year of college. So it became a 15-year secret. In the course of that time, I was also raised in an alcoholic home. I developed an eating disorder. I've been twice suicidal. My parents divorced. When I was 16, my best friend was moving away, and her other set of friends had a sleepover, and they had a going away party, and I wasn't invited. I later found out she told me I had a separate sleepover because they didn't like my personality. And as a 16-year-old, that's crushing. And I didn't let myself cry a tear for 2 years. So I was already very unhealthy because as a rape survivor, my emotions were frozen in time that day. And I didn't know, I knew something wrong had happened, but I didn't have the words. So by the time, when I speak and share my story, what I talk about is the longer you're in the freezer, the thicker the ice gets. So by the time I go from 7 to 22, and I'm finally telling somebody, I was just a really screwed up kid and a young adult. So I was trying, just couldn't, even that it just wasn't really dealing with it. And actually it wasn't until 2008 is where things really started changing for me. And my pastor's wife had passed away in 2005. 3 years later, I'm grieving her still as if it's yesterday. My red flags of my eating disorder were starting to kick in. So finally got connected with a counselor. We spent the first, and I'm still with her now, 12 and a half years later. And I spent the first, I think it was about the first 6 years of dealing with the present. She said, we had to get you stronger in the present before we could deal with the past. So when we started dealing with the rape in 2014 is where my healing story really started. And it was gut-wrenching. And one of the worst things I've had to go through, the worst thing is happening right now. My mom passed away a month ago, so I'm dealing with that. But through that, I started having to deal with my emotions and thaw everything that was in the freezer and deep freeze for so many decades. And then with the eating disorder, we had to deal with as well. And I really didn't start dealing with that till 2016. So my book came out through this whole process. Not only the crux of the story, but I mentioned I'm here in Pennsylvania on a retreat. And these people, God worked through these people to bring healing in my life. I'm on what they call walking stick retreats. It's actually the living legacy of Rich Mullins. His family and friends do it. And I came in the first year, I was imploding in 2014 and was feeling like I wasn't lovable, like I was too far gone and I was taking up space. And one of the staff members has since described it as a Hail Mary, that I was actually lovable and able to be loved, and that God could actually love me. I went into that retreat calling myself the holy exception, that everything was good in the Bible was good enough for everybody else but me. I was too far gone, too screwed up, too much had happened. There was no way I was taking up space. I was a waste of time. And I left there 3 days later, saying for the first time that Jesus Christ is absolutely crazy about me. And it's nothing about, there's nothing magical about the retreat. It's the atmosphere these people set. So each year, God continued to do healing in my life, where I finally started, my biggest fear was crying and not stopping. And the next year I totally lost it. And each year there was more and more healing. So the book came about telling the story, not only of the traumas and the different things that happened growing up, but then how God introduced me to these people who are now my tribe and my family and my friends, and how he worked through those people to show me that I am lovable. And then to take with the things that I learned through my journey. In the second half of the book talks about the space between. That this much I know is all of us have our story. Nobody can take that from us. The space between talks about that healing journey from being wounded to finding that healing, and what happens and what I experienced in that journey of owning your story and grieving it, and learning, that you're lovable and you have an identity and those kind of things.
Wow, that is just such a powerful story of healing that, it sounds like your story, your journey, your words are just able to have so much impact in the lives of people who've gone through so much, to know that they're lovable, that there's hope, and that there's healing still in the future. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Sandee or
Sure, I'll share mine.
Okay.
So what happened with me was I spent a lot of time with prayer groups in the city, both being a part of groups and doing some training as well, intercessory prayer groups, that type of thing. And one of the things that I was noticing was that once the meeting was over, the general conversation would get carnal. It wasn't judgment and condemnation, but it would just be carnal. And so a lot of times what we had accomplished in the prayer, we lose in that after conversation. And so I started looking at my large group prayer meetings versus my personal meetings. And in my private prayer time, I would go into my quote prayer closet with a Bible and a journal. And so when I'm done with prayer, a lot of times I would just sit there and wait in the presence of the Lord. And before long, I came to find out that there was a name for that, sitting just waiting in the presence of the Lord, and it was called soaking. And so I believe the Lord said, you need to share this with your groups and put it in print to make it available to other people. Because a lot of times as Christians, we love to talk, we'll pray, we'll worship God, the whole thing. But the hardest thing for us to do is to be in his presence and be silent. And so that's what soaking is about. It's about you not talking to God, but listening to hear what God wants to say to you. After you've spent your time in prayer, did you give God a chance to say anything during that session? And so that's how my book came about.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
All right. And so with me, real quick here, the journey where I guess the light bulb really came on when I knocked at the door at about 198 pounds, not pregnant or anything, had my kids. And for a 5'3" frame and growing up in a household where health was always important, being an athlete, and almost hitting that 200 pounds was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? What is going on? And looking at my life, how I was working 60 hours a week, and then the why for working 60 hours a week, all of those things prompted me to really make the shift that I needed to make. For example, because I was working 60 hours a week, what was happening, I would eat my dessert. If you remember that, Cenell, I would eat my dessert before my dinner. I would drink coffee all day, and I would have 3 sweeteners per coffee, which is that's a lot of sugar. Your body still will respond, even if it's a sweetener, it's going to respond like it's sugar. And so looking at the why I was doing that and then really making peace with it and doing what I need to do. The why was I was on a chase to prove something. I was on a chase to prove that I would not be a stereotype for having a child as a teenager. I'm not saying I'm a teen mom, because it's those labels that created the shame and making you feel bad for something your body could do at that age. And so it caused me to, I'm going to prove them. So I'm chasing all of these achievements and whatnot. And it caused stress and ultimately weight gain, which was so contrary to who I was and how I was raised. And so that's kind of where the heart of my work comes from. I understand. So when I see it, I see that chase, people chasing whatever they're chasing, and it's causing stress. And then it leads to this weight gain. And then the crazy health challenges that came about because of, like I said, 200 on a 5'3" frame, that's not good for you. And so the crazy health challenges, and I was like, enough is enough. And so that's what prompted me to get back, start learning, studying the nutrition, everything. And, you know, I left teaching. I started my business while teaching full time. And after a series of dreams with the recurring image and theme, I realized I was supposed to leave that and go full time with my business. And that was in 2014. And I haven't looked back. And so the book, like I said, is really a combination of my work over the years of how I work with people. And so it's in one set curriculum. And yeah, there's practical information, but it's more about that heart and head. And that's because that's what I've gone through. That's what I've studied. And I know what it takes now. So that's my journey. That's how I got to where I am.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I do want to take a quick moment to move to the chat. There's a couple of really key things to note there. You'll see in the chat, there are links to all of the books that are being discussed this evening. It's also on the main web page of the book festival as well, too. You'll see links more about our featured authors and their featured books. Then also wanted to bring up, I see Cindy had asked a question for everyone. Looks like Sue, you kind of chimed in with the answer there too. Wanted to give you all a chance to respond to this before we move on to you know, having a reading from those who did want to share. So the question from Cindy was, many of you are ministers, speakers, coaches, but you decided to write a book. Is that because you think you'll reach more people through the written word? You can take a moment just to respond to that.
Like I said, for me, mine was more pragmatic. I just needed a nice tool to be able to give to my clients, and we have it right there, and we can work through the curriculum. So.
My book, I would say yes. I do believe I can reach people. I can reach people in states. I can reach people in countries that I would never cross their paths. And in addition to that, it's a tool. It's a skill resource to help them understand what soaking is. It's sometimes a nebulous type of and people are reading this. And one of the things they find out is that there really is no right or wrong. It's just what you and God share together, and that's what makes it right. But people don't know that, and sometimes they'll get started and they'll quit. So mine is a kind of step by step. I tell them a lot of what soaking is, but I also tell them what soaking is not. It's not prayer. It's not worship. It's none of that. And so I show them that, and then I take them to the scriptures and show them places where other people have had these experiences in the scripture, in the Bible, even though they didn't have that particular name for it. And so it's a skilled resource that would get closer in a relationship with God. And yes, I do believe that's one of the reasons that I can touch those people that I would not otherwise be able to reach.
I kind of answered already, but just briefly, my book wrote me in a lot of different ways, and it became very therapeutic. But then as it started out, I was just going to be like a devotional of this much I know and like a lesson. And then that aspect of the book remains. So the end of each chapter, the first half ends with this much I know, ... And it'll be, whatever, like a summary little concept. And things that God taught me through that chapter, whatever I was dealing with. But for me, yes, the book has been helpful. Through the book, I've now been on over 25 podcasts this year, and with international audiences and national conference presentations. And I'm now, I call myself, I'm actually a hope coach is what I call myself, I identify as a life coach. So it has certainly opened up the doors. I am actually working on book number 2. It's going to be the second part of This Much I Know series. So it is morphed into more than I originally thought. And I actually have titles and concepts for books 3 and 4 already as well. So.
Wow, that's excellent. So now, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so to reach the masses, I think there was probably a part of me that thought, well, yes, it could explode. This would be great. I would love for, thousands and millions of people all around the world to be able to access the book and be a blessing for. And that's still part of my hope. But equally, and just as important, I realized if it's a blessing to one person, that's what it's about. I mean, it was more cathartic for me to write it. It was in me, and it's more of a testimonial. My book is really more of a booklet. It's a short read, so it's a quick and short read, but it's more of a testimonial to the power of what can happen in our lives and how things can really turn around. And it's more, again, that hope, that inspiration, that support. So that motivation and encouragement. So I had to kind of change my thought. Like, again, originally I can't say that that I didn't think about it reaching millions of people and exploding and being a huge success, because that was in the back of my mind. But I also had to quickly pivot and realize that it's that's not just what it's about. It's if one person is blessed by it, then I'm like, okay, this is good. Because it really is all about love. So
excellent. I see we do have another question in the chat. I'm going to share this question, and then also I want to, as you answer, if you were one of the authors that wanted to share a page or so of your work, we do have about a little over 10 minutes left, so we want to be conscious of the time. But if you can talk a bit about how you arrive at your catchy titles. This is from Marianne Moa, and I apologize if I didn't say your name right. She's currently finishing up a Sunday school children's curriculum and working on the title things. Oh, there you are. Hi. So if you would want to share very, very quickly, again, respecting the time, your titles, and if you want to go ahead and do a reading from your work, this will be the time to do so.
I do want to speak to the title thing, add from a teacher perspective. Just start with a working title and don't be married to it. Allow yourself, by the end of your, whatever that end looks like, it's going to change, it's going to morph, and be okay with that. So just get a title to get your juices going, but don't feel like you have to stay with the title. Mine is, like I said, it was more, I wanted people to speak out to themselves. I can lose weight. And WOW, WOWW stands for work on your wellness wish. Don't just wish for it, work on your wellness wish. So that's how I arrived at mine. Do you want me to do that, share a piece right after that, Leslie?
Yeah,
or you wait?
Go for it. And then
Okay.
We'll open it up for the next person to do the same.
I'll just quickly do this. So mine's it's a manual-like book, and there's this section called Power Tool of Perspective Power Tool, and it's about identity. Establishing a new identity in wellness often creates identity conflict or a perceived crisis. With change or transition, we often face conflict at multiple levels and wonder, am I good enough? Will I be successful? Do I have what it takes? Will people support me? You are what you believe and will attract that which you believe about yourself. If you don't believe you deserve to walk proudly in this new lifestyle and sport all the tangible benefits that come along with it, you will attract people, things, and circumstances which will not support you. You will find yourself on the merry-go-round of self-doubt and block opportunities for advancement that have your name on it. There you go.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Awesome. I kind of already explained the title about this much I know being the story. And one of the things that I was learning in my journey was that, or at least that part of my journey, because my journey is still happening, was that everyone has a story, and that story is yours, and no one can ever take that from you or they can try to diminish it, but it is your story, and it has value and it has worth, and you have value and worth. And so that's where the "this much I know" came from. And then I talked about, all right, for the space between talks about the healing journey. What was interesting is that it was a kind of a working title in my head, and that phrase, "the space between," was used in by my pastor in a teaching, and it kind of jumped at me and just really latched on. And then it was also lyrics of a song that we did the same day. I was like, okay, I get the message on that. It's supposed to be in the title of the book. I would like to share this a real brief excerpt if I could. Okay, this is from the chapter called "You Are Valuable to God." This is the second half, talking about the things that I learned. "The fact of the matter is this: Jesus Christ is absolutely crazy about you. When I first heard that phrase at retreat, I doubted it, scorned it, and wished it was true. However, I knew nothing more than to hold on to my hurt because I was convinced it didn't apply to me. However, over the course of the weekend, as I owned my story, I saw my belief change from being the holy exception to truly believing it for the first time. That belief started to change my entire thought process about being worthy. When I started to actually believe and walk in the belief that God cares about me and hurts over the things that have happened to me, I suddenly realized I mattered. I had worth in God's eyes, and it was slowly coming to focus in mine. Only then was it okay to begin letting down my guard around God. It was okay to let my emotions out and vent with God. I was taking the first step to being authentic and real. As I started to believe that I mattered to God and saw that reinforced through the actions of those around me, I started to believe I was worthy of love and acceptance."
Wow.
I'll share my title. The title of my book is "Seeking Through Soaking, the Purposeful Pursuit of His Presence." And the way my title came about is that most of the people that I had encountered who also had some knowledge or experiences with soaking, they stumbled upon it as I did the first time. And so I felt that this needed to be a purposeful pursuit, not something that you just accidentally bumped into, but that you needed to approach it and actually make time in your calendar to sit and soak. I don't want to read an excerpt, but I will give you a quote from my book, which is a quote from Mike Bickle. He is the founder and senior pastor of IHOP, International House of Prayer, not pancakes, okay, in Kansas City, the hub. And one of the things that he calls soaking is wasting your time on Jesus. And so soaking is actually the art of doing nothing in the presence of God. And so that's where my title came from, the purposeful pursuit of his presence.
Wow. That's awesome. Cenell, did you want to share? I believe you had a selection to read as well.
So I did, but actually I talked quite a bit about the book, and actually kind of inadvertently share some of the statements from the book. So I'll just talk a little bit about the title, "Living with Double D, Surviving Depression and Divorce." And this is actually an excerpt, and I talk about that title in the book. But while I was going through the divorce, and like I said, I'd already gone through some depression, a girlfriend, Pia, invited me to go out to lunch. And while we were out to lunch, we were at a Nordstrom's cafe, and we decided to kind of shop around. And I went to the bra area, and I saw some really pretty bras, and I got fitted. And the lady came out of the fitting room, and she told me what my bra size was. And I was like, I kind of started crying. And Pia kind of looked at me afterwards, she's like, "What's wrong? What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, I'm depressed. I'm going through a divorce, and I'm not even wearing the right bra. So that was part of the reason, living with double D's. Double D's is depression and divorce, but I found out, I'm in the presence of mostly women here. I think everybody's women. Yeah, so yeah, I found out I was a double D and I did not know that. I was like, what is going on? So yeah, so that's kind of how the title came about. And so I use a little bit of humor in the book and talk about that. So thanks so much.
I love it. I love it. You know,
Me too.
you know, take what was going on and come up with the whole book title for it. That's awesome. Okay. Well, we have about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to remind everyone again to make sure you're looking at the links that Sandee is adding to the chat that has all the information about our featured authors and how to find them online, their websites. There's a giveaway. I want to take these last few moments just to ask each of you to share what's next for you. You're working on something new, or where are you going from here, excuse me. And jump in.
I'll talk. So sure, my plate's pretty full. I feel very blessed. I'm finishing up the PhD. I talked about not being successful the first time. And so I'm finally finishing my PhD. Thank you, God. I also have a nonprofit business and I have a for-profit business. I teach as an adjunct faculty at a university. And I have a really wonderful, loving family. I remarried. So a lot of wonderful things. And I just want to share that there is another side, and just kind of trusting in that love, that is always present. Just trust in our divine. I call God, I call him source, I call him energy, I call him creator. I don't put God in a box. And I really want to share that. I think sometimes we do just kind of put God in a box. And so if you hear me say God, you may hear me say creator, you may hear me say source, you may hear me say love. So thank you.
It's good. Beautiful. My next act, so to speak, is that I have launched a new publishing company. It's called Kingdom Life Press. What I'm doing with this company is journals, planners. I do a lot of journals for teens. I do a lot of journals for men. I do them themed around some Christian titles that have not been presented yet. For example, I have one called Unmasked, How to Develop Intimacy with God. And it's a 30-day planner / journal. And so what it is it's a teaching that I took and developed as a self-serve kind of work thing. And so my next season is going to be in that calendars. I think I even do password keepers.
Okay, well, best, pray God's blessing over all your ventures.
What's next for me is, like I said, I'm working on book number 2. It's been October 5th, my mom passed away, and we had lived together since 1997, and I was her caregiver the last number of years as her health got more involved with her heart issues. And I hadn't even allowed myself to consider being at this retreat, if mom was still there, and just even when the members just reached out and said, if you feel it's right, hope it's where, you'll be there. And so I'm not sure what this weekend holds, but I know it's the right place to be, but it's going to help me start healing, because what's next for me is, I had told my mom before she passed away about my first book, because of some confusion over her strokes. There were some things in there that she would have latched onto, so it was just best not to let her know about it. I ended up reading the last 3 chapters of my book to my mom while she was still in the hospital, and that completed things for me. And I also told her that I'm starting book number 2, and that book number 2 is going to be dedicated to my mom. And the title is going to be This Much I Know, It's Okay to Not Be Okay. It's already kind of taking a little bit different form. I feel like I'm writing the chapters through what I'm going through right now. At least I'm living the chapters that I want to write. I started my life coaching business early this year as a hope coach. I've got some clients continuing to build that and speaking at conferences. I just had a pre-recorded conference for the Advancing School Mental Health Conference last week. It went national, so that's fun. I'm a mental health advocate, and doing more podcasts, and just having fun and making sure I allow myself time to heal and not rush that process, but still want to use it to continue to advance the message that it's okay to not be okay.
Excellent.
And my next was 2019. So I'm already here. We restructured and rebranded in 2019 and shifted more to an online platform. And we primarily work with corporate, with companies. We do still, people can still engage us individually through the website. And that's great. We love you. But we are super excited about our corporate folks and the direction we're going with our online education, wellness education, because it allows me to play more, have more time to play. So my next is about playing more, because honestly, life is too short and you have to make sure you allow yourself time to have fun. So my next is now in 2020 is not taking my fun away.
Good.
Good.
That is excellent. You know, I'm really grateful that the four of you were willing to, number one, you know, put yourselves out there with these books. You know, a book is almost like your baby. You know, you're putting out there in the world, especially when you're dealing with these really nonfiction issues and spiritual issues and emotional healing. You know, it's almost like you've stripped yourself down in front of the world to see. But you've done it with the goal of hopefully providing some healing. You know, you each have your story, and your story for all the twists and turns and plot twists you've had in life. You know, prayerfully, we see that God is really using your story to help others. And not only your story, but your time tonight. Thank you so much for sharing all that you've shared. Thank you, readers, for, you know, joining in and listening and asking the questions that you have. Before we go, I just want to make sure that there aren't any unasked questions out there. If you have any other kind of comments or questions out there, this is the time. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Well, it won't be forever, but at least for this segment. Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. Keep writing, keep going forward. Hold on to hope, hold on to your happy, and stay healthy. All right.